If Bo Nix were a cereal, he'd be Bo Tricks.
This is the worst.
Mota Ditabanakisi, welcome into the Worst Fantasy Show. I am your host with the least, Jack Lucenay. We are here. We've reached the end of week 11. We've got the Monday Night Football game, battle of the Texas teams. We've got the Houston Texans and the Dallas Cowboys bringing it home for us on this week 11. In the news, Tommy DeVito is back, baby. Get the word out. We're back up. Tommy Cutlets. Hey, I'm starting for the Giants over here. It's a good week to be back with the hearts and the farts. Without further ado, let's get into some positivity. Let us start with the hearts. Starting off with the quarterbacks. It was a great week for the quarterbacks. My gosh. Jared Goff and the Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions. It was like that Simpsons meme, like, stop, he's dead already. Just beat the crap out of the Jacksonville Jaguars. My gosh. And then Matthew Stafford lighten it up with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, who will both be on the list a little bit later. We also had Bo Nix topping off the show. Not only did I have like a really fun stream of those Bo Nix jokes on my stream when I was watching Red Zone, but he's been dominating for fantasy and deserves to be owned in more than 50% of fantasy leagues, where he is still under-owned in single quarterback leagues. Joe Burrow got it done. It was a little rough waters in the beginning, but then T. Higgins and Jamar Chase lit it up. Jameis Winston, Tua Tagovailoa, Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, Justin Herbert, Anthony Richardson. I've never been a believer in him, but he had a damn good game. Derek Carr, Jordan Love, Patrick Mahomes. And then even in the cracked 20 club, you had guys like Gardner Minshew, Brock Purdy, and Drake May. For the running backs, we had Saquon Barkley continuing to do Saquon Barkley things. We had Breece Hall, David Opportunity, a.k.a. David Montgomery, Josh Jacobs, Jahmyr Gibbs, and the Lions. Again, you just play both running backs week in, week out, both of them finishing top 5. Yes, theoretically, one of them could be getting like 30, 40 fantasy points if there was just one of them. But hey, let's not be greedy. Let's enjoy the fact that they're both succeeding. Devon Achane, J.K. Dobbins, Chase Brown. It is officially Chase Brown season. He is getting all of that work as far as the backfield for the Cincinnati Bengals. Javonte Williams, James Cook, DeAndre Swift, Brian Robinson, and Austin Eckler, which, again, you talk about dual backfields that I think can possibly continue to succeed together. I definitely think that they are one, especially this week coming up against Dallas, and what'll be a home matchup. I think definitely possibility for them. So I'm really in on the Washington backfield. CMC and Kenneth Walker rounding out your top 15. For the wide receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown, the sun god doth shineth too brightly. Little Cooper Kupp, double touchdown. T. Higgins, Jerry Jeudy, Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams and Amon-Ra, again, double Lions teammates in the top 5 wide receivers and top 5 running backs. Just shows you how much they pounded the Jaguars into the dust. You had the law firm letters, NWH and MBS. You had Jamar Chase and Puka Nacua. You had Jawan Jennings, who's going to be very interesting down the stretch as a fantasy darling. Christian Watson from out of nowhere, Josh Downs, JSN, Lad McConkey. JSN and Lab McConkey fighting it out for my bet with my guy HoovTube of who will be more fantasy relevant this season. Jordan Addison, Tyreek Hill, Elijah Moore, Kendrick Bourne, and Xavier Worthy popping up here. For the tight ends, Taysom motherfucking Hill had quite possibly the most ridiculous fantasy game of all time. Like, it was something like 150 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. He also had 8 receptions for like 50 yards, and he threw a pass, including an interception. It didn't matter. If you had Taysom Hill, if you had the foresight to start him, I had him in 1 out of 26 leagues that I'm in. 1 fucking league did I start Taysom Hill where I have him. And yeah, it paid off. It was a Taysom Hill week. Probably won't get this again for the rest of the season, but they're so depleted are the New Orleans Saints that he's officially spot start worthy because it feels like there is a floor there because tight end is so abysmal this year. Jonnu Smith also continues to be relevant in that Miami Dolphins backfield. Brock Bowers, Noah Gray, Will Dissly, Zach Ertz, David Njoku, Jawan Johnson, Hunter Henry, Colby Parkinson, Dallas Goddard, all the way back on Thursday. And then rounding out the defense, we had the Denver Broncos, the Minnesota Vikings, the Detroit Lions, the Los Angeles Rams, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we also have to give a special shout out.
Thanks, Jamal.
Nundaska, my guy Chris Boswell, the Wizard of Boz, saving me in my Megalo Bowl, not Megalo Bowl, but my main Money League matchup where I desperately needed that win. So those 6 field goals came in aplenty. Fuck yeah, Chris Boswell. Let's get into the duds of the week. Let's get into those farts.
Come on, don't bullshit me.
Bullshit.
Bullshit. Bullshit. Bullshit.
Bullshit. You said so. It's all bullshit.
Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson, we just expect better of you. 19.6 fantasy points, 18.8 fantasy points. On a day where you had Gardner Minshew and Drake May going over 20 fantasy points, it just felt disappointing. You had Aaron Rodgers and Caleb Williams getting about 16-ish. In the sub-15 club, you had Jaden Daniels and Geno Smith. And the guys that really tanked your week, the actual duds of the week, Mac Jones, if you had the unfortunate audacity to start him in a super flex. Russell Wilson was a very popular streamer against the pass funnel of the Baltimore Ravens. And Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons looked like a hot Atlanta mess. So that was a brutal one. For the running backs, Kyron Williams. There was no touchdown. He had 86 yards, but there was no receptions, no touchdowns. It was just kind of meh. You had Bijan Robinson shut down by the Broncos. You had Jonathan fucking Taylor, who I thought had a great matchup against the Jets. I had him in a lot of places. 57 rush yards on 24 attempts. That's gross. Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, Travis Etienne. Etienne especially, that was one that I thought was a little bit of a contrarian play. And nope, it just continues to be a bad play. So that's one that kind of sucked. Aaron Jones, Audric Estime, also fooling a lot of people. Tony Pollard, Gus Bus, Emmanuel Wilson, only on this list because I said he could potentially be like a deep desperation spot start, and even that didn't work out for you. And then also Raheem Mostert, just completely irrelevant. For the wide receivers, DJ Moore, it continues to be a struggle, and frankly, all of the Chicago Bears wide receivers belong on this list. Jaden Reed, even though he caught the touchdown, 2 for 23 and just the 1 touchdown, that was disappointing. A.J. Brown going back to the Thursday game along with Terry McLaurin. A.J. Brown, 5 for 65, no touchdown. Terry McLaurin, just 1 for 10. That was abysmal. Calvin Ridley, 4 for 58, turned back into a little bit of a pumpkin. It was Nick Westbrook-Akine that ended up catching the super long touchdown. You had Cedric Tillman. That was one that I saw coming as a little bit of, a guy that could definitely disappoint you. And a lot of people were trying to start him. I was like, nah, starting T. Higgins. T. Higgins was one that, I usually hate on T. Higgins, and I was glad I called him above Drake London, who's also on this list. Had to deal with the matchup of the Broncos, obviously, and Pat Surtain Jr. I said that's just a shutdown guy right now that you want to avoid for your fantasy matchups. Also, Amari Cooper, Michael Pittman, Jacoby Myers, Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle. That's one. Jalen Waddle is dead to me at this point. Like, this dude is not doing anything to help you. You can frankly drop him. It sounds gross, but he's just not doing anything. And you'd have to be in a shallow league. If you're in a 10-man and there's like really good waiver option and you're just holding on to Jalen Waddle, move on, or at least try to package trade him. And then if you can't, like, dump that, as sometimes there's name value guys that have just been so bad that I call them landmine players, where you drop them and you hope someone picks them up and tries to play them. And because, this guy should be good. And then, but he hasn't been all season. And then he just ends up tanking someone else's lineup instead of yours. And then rounding out the list, Darnell Mooney injured his hamstring. That sucked. Rashad Bateman turned back into Rashad Bateman. Garrett Wilson just 4 for 18. Deebo Samuel was irrelevant. DeAndre Hopkins didn't have a good game. And Tyler Lockett continues to be, frankly, irrelevant amidst the breakout of JSN. And now we get into, this has to be my favorite bit of all time now.
Who scored more than Kyle Pitts this week?
Jonnu Smith, Noah Gray, Will Disley, Big Country, Zach Ertz, Jawan Johnson, Nate Adkins, Kenny Yaboa Constrictor, Isaiah Likely, Brock Wright, Foster Moreau, Dawson Knox, Cole Kmet, Austin Hooper, Darnell Washington, Josh Oliver, Julian Hill, Chigo Conco, John Bates, Moali Cox, Shane Zylstra, AJ Barner, The Muth, Jordan Akins, Tanner Hudson, Johnny Munt, and Peyton Hendershot. I don't know if you guys realize on that list, there are 2, not 1, but 2 full entire tight end rooms that each individual player outscored Kyle Pitts. The Vikings, you had, even though he was on the dud list, TJ Hawkinson outscored Kyle Pitts. So you had TJ Hawkinson, Josh Oliver, and Johnny Munt. All 3 of them outscored Kyle Pitts. You had Jonnu Smith and Julian Hill. Julian Hill, you're like, who the fuck is Julian Hill? Julian Hill is a backup tight end for the Miami Dolphins. So both of those guys outscored Kyle Pitts. What was the other? Oh, Austin Hooper backup. That one's just always on the list. And the Saints, that was the other one. You had obviously Taysom Hill, but also Jawan Johnson and Foster Moreau. So all 3 Saints tight ends individually outscored Kyle Pitts. Whew. Also, really pooping the bed for the tight ends. You had Travis Kelce, TJ Hawkinson, aforementioned, Mark Andrews, Evan Ingram, Dawson Knox. I told you not to chase the Dawson Knox thing. Pat Freiermuth. That's another one. I said, don't chase Pat Freiermuth. That's irrelevant in an Arthur Smith system. Tucker Kraft put up an actual goose egg, 0 for 1. That sucked hard. And on defense, you had the Browns, Jets, Colts, and Dolphins. All were pretty much duds. The Browns were the worst out of all of them. I did have the Jets and Colts kind of as streamers, but more lower end. Neither hit. Same with the Dolphins, but it was still like 7-ish, 8 fantasy points. So it's not like it killed your week. Whew, that was a lot. Let's get, you know what? There's a question in the comments. Let's get the question in before we get to the waivers. My guy Frizzle, what's up? I'm down 25 points. Mixon needs to come in clutch for me. Yeah. I mean, there's just as many people that need Mixon to put up a dud, but I will say you at least have potential because he's been so good and Dallas defense has been so bad against the run. Chase McLaughlin worth a pickup if it means I would have to drop Leggett to get him. I currently have John Romo. Yeah, no. I mean, look, the problem with McLaughlin is like any given week, it's like, okay, maybe it's a Javonte Williams week. Maybe it's an Audric Estime week. Maybe it's a Chase McLaughlin week. You're not going to know. I wouldn't really mess around with that. I don't think Xavier Leggett is like worth holding on to desperately if you have to drop him for a better waiver. I just don't think McLaughlin is the one that I would be dropping for. But hey, maybe one of these guys that I'm about to mention will be worth dropping for. So let's get into some waivahs. Hey, I'm on waivahs over here.
The fuck? The fuck? The fuck is in the air. The fuck? There's white shit everywhere. The fuck? I must be fucking baked and this shit's probably fake. The fucking hell did I just take? The fuck?
Tommy Cutlets, Tommy DeVito is the starting quarterback officially again for the New York Giants and is a must pick up. He must be started. He is the number one fantasy quarterback of all time. No, I'm totally fucking with you guys. I mean, in a deep super flex, like if you're out here, I've seen people adding like Bryce Young, Mac Jones. If you're in desperation mode, trying to fill bye weeks, trying to stream a quarterback in a deep super flex or like one of these crazy 32 team leagues, by all means, go ahead and pick up Tommy Cutlets. But for real, single quarterback, you're gonna have some options. I think Derek Carr and Aaron Rodgers are both going into bye weeks. So keep an eye on those guys. You may want to pick them up. If you're at a point now in the season where you're a winning team and you're trying to prep for the playoffs, I think especially Derek Carr is worth adding. You look at his schedule the rest of the way. He's got the Rams, the Giants, the Commanders. That's a bit tough of a matchup against the Packers. And in championship week, if you make it that far, if you need a streaming quarterback, he gets a revenge game against the Raiders. So that lines up really well. Anthony Richardson was largely dropped in a lot of leagues and showed his potential. I think he's worth adding. He gets Detroit. That's a tough matchup. But then the following week against New England, I think, is a little bit easier. Cooper Rush, I mean, you could add him for free tonight before the game runs. Kind of same thing with Tommy Cutlets. He's on a bye, so you could just add him for free if you're in the mode where you're having to add Cooper Rush. That's where Tommy DeVito becomes viable. And then again, Will Levis and Gardner Minshew. If those guys are floating out there and you're messing around with Rush and DeVito, like I would add Levis and Minshew. It sucks, but they're getting they just both hit 20 fantasy points right around. So they're going to fuck up a lot, but they're going to also just, throw it down the field a bit. For your running backs, there's nobody. All right. It's handcuff season. Roschon Johnson's probably the most, reasonable name if you need kind of a desperation spot start because they're at least using him differently than DeAndre Swift. Kind of the same can be said for Amir Abdullah. Really deep and old name there. That's like one of those where it's like name a running back that everybody's forgotten about. Amir Abdullah is a receiving back formerly of the Detroit Lions once upon a time, but he now finds himself with the Raiders, who cannot get a running game going to save their lives. Zamir White and Alexander Madison. Amir Abdullah is the receiving back. He's entrenched in that role for at least this year. So if you need desperation spot start, he's a guy. Justice Hill, as we kind of start to get closer to the Ravens cementing their spot in the playoff, I think is going to get more run because they're going to want to rest Henry going into the playoffs. So Justice Hill should be added. Kenny Gainwell, kind of the same thing for Saquon, Tyler Goodson for Jonathan Taylor, Emmanuel Wilson for Josh Jacobs. For the wide receivers, old man Adam Thielen. Coming back off IR, he should be able to play in this game against the Chiefs. He's at least worth adding. I wouldn't start him, but I mean, throw him on your bench. maybe if he is trying to play for like his next team or contract or whatever it is, like, maybe he's startable down the stretch. It would surprise me a lot, but considering the rest of these names, I mean, Xavier Worthy dropped in a lot of leagues, definitely worth an ad after what we saw. If the Chiefs start to really incorporate him more down the stretch. And he almost had another really long pass where he just tapped his foot too early. If he could have kept his feet in bounds, he would have had an even bigger day than he had. John Mechie, that's a guy you could add tonight, preemptively again ahead of tonight's Monday Night Football matchup. Elijah Moore. I mean, Jameis Winston's just throwing it all over the yard, and Nick Chubb clearly is not. He's back in the sense that he's playing football, and that's nice, but he's not back in the terms of he's 100% healthy. And, between the myopic split of him and Jerome Ford, they're just throwing the football, and the defense seems to be falling apart. I mean, they just got ripped apart by Taysom Hill, for fuck's sakes. So, yeah, I think definitely Elijah Moore. The law firms, NWH, MVS, if you just are throwing it, you're a bad team. You're 4-5 and you're dealing with injuries and or 4-5, 4-6 at this point. Like, I mean, these are really deep names. Kendrick Bourne, Curtis Samuel, any Denver wide receiver not named Cortland Sutton, and Alec Pierce. And then at tight end, Dallas Goedert is a just go check because he was dropped by teams that couldn't hold him through the injury. Will Disley is someone that is definitely streamable. He just helped me out big time. Mike Gesicki is a stash, but you only play him when T. Higgins is not playing because he's not really relevant when both of them are in. Isaiah Likely and Cole Kmet are very much like deep dart throws that you can just always throw in and hope for the best. And I think Foster Moreau and Jawan Johnson are starting to be kind of the same thing for the Saints. Jawan Johnson first, he's more of a receiving option, and then Foster Moreau. Again, very deep, like 14, 16-team leagues. You just need a plug-and-play tight end. The Saints wide receivers are completely depleted, so they're depending on this tight end trifecta. So I would prioritize Jawan Johnson, but even Foster Moreau, like, you can just hope he catches the touchdown. And on defense, the Washington Commanders, if you're able to add them, they have the Dallas Cowboys next week. They're going to be at home. That is a plus matchup. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have the New York Giants. They're on the road against the Giants, but then also on the road against the Panthers. And they're on a bye. If you have the kind of format of league where you can drop a bench guy right now and go pick up Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense and stash them right now, go do that right now. Seriously. New York Giants, Carolina Panthers the next 2 weeks. The Cardinals get Seattle. That one's a lot more dangerous, but hey, Seattle's been kind of touch and go. And then the Miami Dolphins are at home against the New England Patriots. That one should be okay. That's it for me. We're going to keep it short and sweet here on Hearts and Farts. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I appreciate you guys. Super kick that subscribe and like. I will catch you guys on Thursday. We should be back live with the matchups for week 12, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursday. And then again, Sunday, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for Sunday morning questions. But until the next time, I will catch all of you guys on the flip side.
He's running down the middle by the 50. He's at the 30. He's bare-chested and banging his chest. Now he runs the opposite way. He runs at the 50. He runs at the 40. The guy is drunk, but there he goes. The 20. They're chasing him. They're not going to get him. Waving his arms, bare-chested. Somebody stop that man. Here comes